Hi, everyone, and we have a very special edition of Todd Talks. We have Mackenzie here today, who, uh, with everything that's gone on in the world, I know we've had loss and we've had separation from the people we love, and we've also had a lot of moments where we haven't had closure for some of the great things that we've done with our lives. And one of those is graduation. And so I asked Mackenzie if she would be the valedictorian of D&D Beyond. And she has a speech for all of you who graduated this year, either from high school or college, or who just care about D&D. And now I'm going to leave.
Hi. I hope everyone's having a good morning or afternoon or evening or whatever time zone of greeting is appropriate for you because time is a construct, as the pandemic has proved. Before we get started, I need to get all the cheesy things out of the way. I want to thank my friends and found family who helped me get to this point. Alice, a phenomenal sister whose beautiful chinchilla memes got me through finals. Scrat and Paladin, the best big brothers I could ask for, even in spite of the dual kazooing. Dennis, the Asimar wizard, to my tiefling warlock, and the kindest partner in the world. Wonderful friends and fellow creators like Sam, James, Joey, Celeste, Hannah, CB, Renee, and so many others. I literally do not have space in this paragraph to name because if I did, that would be the entirety of the speech and the entirety of the Todd Talks episode. And of course, Todd, who plopped the role of valedictorian onto my head with much gravitas. When Todd first told me I was going to be valedictorian for D&D for 2020, I thought he was joking. Sure, I had just finished my last exam to get my grubby little hands on that bachelor degree, but as much as I might joke on my social media accounts about pursuing a graduate program in dungeoneering and dragonology, D&D doesn't exactly need a valedictorian. Because a valedictorian is meant to represent the best of the rising cohort, to set the precedent for a better and brighter future. And I had just laughed myself to tears, terrifying one of my players with the possibility of egg. But nah, he was serious, so here we are. And I can't help but wonder, why me? It's not the first time I've asked myself that question. I started creating for D&D back in 2018 as a last-ditch attempt to save myself. Depressed, filled with self-loathing, left broken and hurting from toxic relationships, I had absolutely nothing left except a couple of stray dice and some half-baked game ideas. So I published things on DM's Guild just so I could have something on my portfolio when I submitted to internships. I started playing TTRPGs on streams because I figured, hey, I'm unobtrusive and unentertaining enough to be good screen filler for the cooler people in the community. I was hollow, sad, and so very alone. When I got invited to join my first long-term stream campaign, I was flabbergasted because why me? The question would come up again less than a month later when people started inviting me to work more closely with community efforts and said they appreciated the positive energy I brought to the space. Then in the summer, when people pushed to help me go to Gen Con, which at the time was just a far off dream for me. Then again, when I was hired as a freelancer for some of the biggest names in the industry. Even now, as I'm writing this all out and as I'm reading it all out on live on stream, I can't help but wonder, why not choose someone else? What makes me special? Why me? And I think I finally have the answer, which is to say, no reason at all. Because my journey isn't unique. I'm not the only person who's turned to gaming after a mental breakdown. I'm not the only one who's found friends and family through this online community. I'm not the only one whose career has been forever changed by this game. We just don't see stories like mine as often because so many people like to stay safe in tradition. We don't welcome new worlds, but instead try and rehash the same old modules and mechanics. We don't welcome new faces because we'd rather keep things the same. So I seem like an outlier, a rarity that should be celebrated, but I'm not. I was talking with a fellow D&D creator one day, and they half joking asked, "Could you get me into the door?" And I remember saying without a second thought, "Honestly, I'm planning on kicking the whole damn door down." And I think that's the crux of it all, because I'm not special. There are so many other creators like me out there fighting for someone to give them a seat at the table. It's like some vicious game of musical chairs, and I just happened to be the one hovering over his seat when the music stopped. And I may not be strong enough to fight the DJ controlling the game all on my own, but I can add more chairs to the circle. I can invite more players to the game, and then they too can bring chairs for others. And through that, we can keep growing and growing until the question is no longer why me. Instead, it's why not you too? Because no matter what people say otherwise, you are so important. You have a story that deserves to be heard, even when others try to silence you. You have the strength to be brave and take risks, even when the fear and anxiety is overwhelming. You are worth love and respect and happiness, even when others, including your own brain, try to suffocate out your light. You are so, so important. And you may not believe that right now, and that's okay. Whenever you're ready to take your first steps on your adventure, I promise I'll have a chair waiting for you. Happy graduation, everyone.
Yeah, I'm not feeling feelings. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Mackenzie, for doing
Wait, I
that.
gotta do the celebratory hat toss.
Yeah, you have to throw the hat.
Yeet! There we go.
Mackenzie, you've graduated.
I'm free!
You're free.
I'm free!
It's all over. That was an amazing speech.
Thank you.
That was fantastic. So, you are officially D&D's valedictorian for 2020, and thank you for giving everyone a moment like this. I think so many people needed. I would like to spend the rest of today interviewing you and talking about your journey. Like, how did for you talk about where you were at in your
Mhm.
life? When did D&D come to be a part of that?
So I'd always had a passing interest in D&D, just sort of like a satellite interest because I'd loved fantasy forever. But where I grew up in the school I went to, there wasn't really anyone who played D&D. I also didn't have a lot of friends. You kind of need friends to play D&D, so eh. But the first time I played D&D was at a summer camp where I actually had met my partner. They had done a very introductory session for D&D where like groups of 3 or 4 were controlling one character. We only rolled the d20. It was all flat damage, and it was just a very basic like you're a bunch of people off to go investigate some goblins. And I remember falling in love with it because we played a bard, and the bard had vicious mockery, and I found it so funny I could insult someone to death. And then so after that, when I went to college or when I went to university, I wanted to join D&D, but the group at my university was like, well, we're not really accepting new players right now. We're kind of full. So like, uh, yeah. And that bummed me out. So I ended up hearing a lot about D&D through my partner and their group at his group at his university. Um, and it was a little bit more involved than what we had done at the summer camp. So there was a lot more like mechanics and class things and spell slots that I didn't quite understand. And then so one day, Dennis, my partner, came to me and was like, "So I know you don't entirely understand what I'm talking about half the time, but I found this really cool show where a bunch of voice actors play Dungeons and Dragons, and I think you should watch it because you might be able to understand what's going on when I talk to you." And I was like, "Okay." And so started watching Critical Role, and then I kept watching Critical Role, and then I surpassed my partner, and I did the thing you're not supposed to do, where you skip, you go ahead. Um, I was really,
It's a big no-no.
look. I needed to listen to something when I was cooking, and it was the Briarwood arcs. Okay, I have no shame. um, and through that, I met James Hake, who's lead writer for D&D Beyond, who actually happens to be an alumni from my university. And through a very weirdly helpful Twitter algorithm, I started following his work with his actual play Worlds Apart, which got me into the online community. I started streaming with the Scraticus Academy, and then I did a one shot with them, and apparently I was funny and entertaining. And so I started doing a little bit more. I took the plunge to start DMing just because I was like, why not? And then from there, I started creating things and putting stuff online, and it turned out people liked it. And so then I just sort of kept going. And then I really fell into a rhythm and I really enjoyed the community I had found and the people I had found. And when I say I found family, I mean it with all my heart. And I love everything that I've been able to help create. And I fell so in love with the things I can do and the worlds I can create and the people for whom a D&D means so much for, and I'm just like, I can't leave. This is wonderful seeing being able to have a job where I can create not just stories, but sandboxes for people to build their own stories in and explore their own worlds and their own emotions and other things, and get started on those journeys themselves, where I starting from where I was about a year ago and seeing them grow as people. It's amazing.
And this has all happened incredibly fast for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the time that you started learning about D&D was when? Like playing it?
And I started my first game of D&D was almost 2 years ago.
2 years ago, you first started playing D&D,
Yes.
and now I have literally witnessed you design things in front of me. um, that would take me like at least a week or 3 you could do in an hour of that where I would be banging my head against a wall. Like you have
Yeah.
you just have taken to it in such an extreme way. Do you have any advice for anyone? Because this seems like you get it. Like you get design and you get storytelling right away.
I think I think there's a lot of people there's a lot of elements in D&D design. So, you have adventures and encounters, but then you also have subclasses and magic items, and they all I think it's important to recognize that every single element contributes to storytelling in some way, but how they convey those narrative elements work very differently across like different mediums. How you convey a story through an encounter is very different to how you convey story in the subclass. And I think for me, the very thing that helps me a lot, especially because mechanics get a little crunchy and grindy, is understanding what story do I want to convey with what project I'm working on. So for example, my the adventure module I wrote last year, I've been was my focus was I wanted to write a story about mental health that situated mental health as something that can grow and be powerful and need to be like pushed back, but not something that can be necessarily defeated like a monster. It has to come back at the end. And the storyline that I wanted to go through in the adventure and the exploration I wanted to incorporate into that adventure was all based around the idea of how do we get people to talk about mental health through role playing their characters. And so by starting out with that, I was able to build on mechanics and figure out like how to do role tables that would affect certain things, or how to design a monster that has different abilities that sort of not reference but emulate the struggles we have in mental health. Same thing with some of the subclasses I've designed. With Pneumomancy, my wizard arcane tradition, I wanted to create a subclass where the entire arc of that subclass, because when you play a character, it is still a character arc. So the subclasses need to have that inner character arc, so that as you grow and level, that you also have that sort of character development.
Yeah,
And so
every
I wanted
subclass needs a story.
every subclass needs a story. And so for Pneumomancy, I wanted that story to be this is about how your bonds with others and how you use that and use your love for the family in your life to strengthen others. And that was the narrative elements that propelled the design through that class. That's what I use, and that's why and I've always had a knack for patterns, and so that mechanics come a little bit more easier to me than most, because I can see the numbers and look at how subclasses are designed and sort of not necessarily calculate, but figure out, okay, so this amount of damage usually goes with this sort of thing, and sort of pinpoint those patterns. And I know that doesn't come easily for a lot of people, but I know that is something that's really helpful for me, learning how to recognize patterns both numerically and narratively.
Was it weird joining the D&D community? Because it was for me. I came from many communities, and I was used to a certain You ever notice when you meet someone who's too nice and you're like, what do you want?
Oh my god,
I
yep.
kind of felt that way about the D&D community when I started becoming
Yeah.
part of it, because I always played D&D, but I was never like, I didn't go to cons, I didn't go to
Mhm.
game stores to play D&D with people. I mainly just read it,
Yep.
or like my brother would rather run me on a game. Um, and it's been, for me, shocking how nice everyone is and
Mhm.
supportive. What was it like for you to transition from a life that maybe was not filled with that much support
Mhm.
to this?
I think for me, it's something I have to work on every single day because I remember when I started out in the community, I was so cynical and I I had a very hard heart because I had been all my life people had taken advantage of my kindness or my optimism and used it to either bully me or make fun of me or ostracize me from groups. And it had led me to spending a whole chunk of my life believing everyone had selfish intentions and that if I didn't have some stake in it or I didn't like vet it myself, it was going to be against me. And I had such a angry and cynical and hollow mindset that was just so draining, and it's something that I have to work on every single day to not slip back into. Working to understand that people can be kind and that people can be that being kind isn't a weakness. That being kind doesn't mean you let people get away with things. It just means that you believe that people can be good or better than they were and they can learn. And I have to do that every single day is when I see people who attack my friends or snap at people online. I It's so easy to want to lash out, but I want to believe that things can be better and I want to believe that things can be kind. And I will always it is a struggle for me to remember that, but it's something that I want to do because I want to see that reflected in the community I build.
Yeah, I get to, I often, it's very easy to get, complacent's not the word. I'm just, when you spend that much time in a different state of mind,
Mhm.
uh, it's hard to adjust.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm st
remember, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I had a friend group where, like, it was a very toxic friend group, but the only reason why we were friends wasn't because we had anything in common, except for the fact that we all hated the same things. That was the only
Yeah,
reason why we were friends, and it was like, I thought that was normal until
yeah.
I met people who were like, "No, we actually like you, and we, appreciate you, and we're not trying to, like, get anything out of it. We just genuinely like you. You're a cool person." I was like, "What? Huh?" And it's still surprising to me, but it's something that I know a lot of people struggle with, and so I want to be that light that's like, "No, I do like you for, I'm not trying to get anything out of it. I'm not trying to use your kindness for anything. I genuinely want to be kind and welcome you into this community." And I know that's not necessarily a rarity, but it's hard to trust that, especially when you come from people so used to being attacked. And I want to at the very least make strides to help people learn to open up a little bit.
You said you didn't quite understand why I said you are a valedictorian, and certainly this went much further than you thought was gonna go. So I
Look,
apologize
I
for
was
that.
just I was just happy to graduate in the middle of a pandemic, y'all. Like
Yeah.
I was just happy to be done. Just turn in my thesis, turn in my math homework. I'm done. I can sleep finally.
Friday, you thought you were done, and then I dragged you back into it.
You were like, "No, wait. You're
No
actually
way.
write a speech. Do it." And I'm like,
There's
"Are
gonna be an
you
audience.
are you
Uh,
serious? Okay, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll do it."
I think the reason is your story is a lot of other people's story, though, and that's the point. Is like we all come not necessarily from great communities or friends that were nurturing or
Yep.
families, but we all came to D&D for a reason.
Yeah.
And D&D has helped so many of us. Like, it's helped me with mental health. It's helped me from the boredom of living in the middle of nowhere and not having any friends in school, right? Like, it does so much for so many people, and I feel like that resonated very much with you.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm also just jealous of how good you are at, like, designing stuff.
Well,
But yeah,
I mean, like, speaking of graduation, I have my degree is in creative writing with a minor in computer science. So
yeah,
numbers and storytelling are literally what I went to school for.
good
So
choices.
yeah, I didn't go to school with the intention of becoming a D&D designer, but it worked out. So I'm gonna take that as a win.
For everyone who's watching, and also for yourself 2 years ago,
Mhm.
knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Oh God.
Yeah, easy question.
Oof. Let me see. Where was I? Yeah. So let's see. 2 years ago was Mac about 6 months from her full mental breakdown. So goodness. I'd want to say that it's you're gonna you're gonna have better friends. You I know you feel like people don't listen to you or they don't care. And I know you are sitting on a pile of massive rejections. And I know you feel like your creativity is useless and no one wants to hear your stories. And you are definitely on the on the verge of giving up. Um, I'm sorry you had to go through that. And I'm sorry part of it were my decisions that led you to that place. And I know you feel like you're even further than the bottom of the barrel and you feel really alone to the point of yelling at your car because no one else will listen to you. But I know if I tell you this you're not going to believe me, but you are very very important. And there are people out there you haven't met yet who want to hear your stories. And I know you're not going to believe me because you hate yourself and you think you're worthless and you're not. And I know that's so hard for you to believe and I know you're not it's going to take you a while to get there, to let people into your life and be open enough to be kind and let that change in. And it's going to be scary because you're not going to know what's happening and it's going to be a wild journey that happens way too fast. And it's going to surprise you and it's going to terrify you at many many parts because you're not this wasn't what you had planned, not like you had a plan, but you're going to do, I hesitate to say good things, but you're going to do things that help people. You're going to inspire people. You're going to tell some amazing stories. You're going to get help for your mental health. You are going to learn how to cry again and be confident in yourself. You're going to make friends, real friends this time, I promise. Not people who just you hang out with because they all hate the same thing, but people who actually like you and want to be around you and appreciate what you bring. You're going to meet family. You're going to get brothers and sisters. You're going to learn a little bit more about yourself and you're going to have a really good time. I know you're not going to believe me if you heard this, but just keep going. It's going to get real rough for about the next 6 months, but then it's going to get better, I swear. You just got to get through those 6 months of real badness. I promise.
The first thing I say to anyone who I meet who's especially in high school is it gets better. And it's universal that you can say that to anyone who's in high school. And they know, like,
I mean,
they just,
it might get worse before it gets better, but
yeah,
like it'll get there eventually. You
yeah,
just it might take a while and it may not immediately like get better, and also better may not be what you think it looks like,
yeah.
but it'll be okay.
That's very similar to the question that Critical Bard wanted me to ask. I didn't see
Mhm.
it, but he said, "What would current Mac tell incoming freshman Mac
That was
adventure.
I have a whole essay about that.
Yeah.
That's in my thesis.
I believe
I
that's
actually wrote into like it's a 1,500 word essay about 5 things I would tell my freshman self. I might have cried while writing it. It's good stuff.
You might have cried while reading it.
Yes.
We have another question from Wild Rose Mage. What kinds of projects do you most want to work on in the future?
Oh my god. Oh, all of them. They're so cool. I think I like I love setting guides. And I love setting guides and I love writing subclasses. I have a because I have problems separating school life from work life from like life. My senior thesis was a D&D setting. I chose that before I started really working, and so mistakes were made, but I don't regret it too much. Um, I have a D&D setting in the works, where it's a modern magic setting inspired by Southern California. It's got like some retro stuff. It's inspired by like American Gods and Percy Jackson, and I'd love to be able to work on that in the future and like really flesh it out and play test it and sort of have fun with it. Um, Playing around with modern magic in a way that doesn't actually like playing around a genre without actually breaking mechanics too much.
Hmm.
I definitely would love to do that. But I'm really excited to be working on. I think what Sina Una is coming out soon, like the end of the summer, October. It's very soon, and I'm super excited to be working on that. I'd love to work on more things like that, where it's getting to build out settings and worlds and subclasses. I love the idea of building sandboxes for people to play in. I love adventures too. Like, don't get me wrong, I love writing encounters. I love writing adventures. It's so much fun. And like writing the encounters of the week for Wildmount and seeing people on Twitter going, "Hi, yeah, we played your encounter and it was super fun and I can't wait to go play again next week." And I'm like, "Ah, that's so cool." But like it's just like, you like my stuff. Oh my god. And that's like super cool, but and I love getting to do that and I love like writing storylines, but my favorite thing has always been writing settings and subclasses and essentially giving people building blocks and go, "Okay, here's the Lego set, not built. You can build it exactly as the instructions say, or you can mess around with it. Have fun. It's up to you." I designed the original layout and template, but go nuts. Go have fun. Go forth. Build a dinosaur or something.
I mean, that's kind of the point, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially, you know, well, you're not in a great situation. And this is why D&D, why I enjoy D&D in the first place, anyways, in all role playing games, is freedom. Like, you're watching a movie and you're along for the ride. But that first time I got to play and I realized it's my choice,
Yep.
that broke my mind. That is not something I got to experience before. And if you don't have a lot of choice in your life, um, then that is
Mhm.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
getting a car for the first time or something,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Like you're
it's
driving a
yeah.
car.
Because like the thing for me and the thing that I've always loved about TTRPGs, D&D and D and others is that it's like I get to put a little bit of myself into a character and then I get to play that character and explore that character. And sometimes it leads to self-discovery where I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that was hidden away in my brain. Okay. We got to go process that now." And
Yeah.
like and like having that freedom to like create for giving essentially people the tools to create something, and through creating that, because you inevitably put so much of yourself into either the games you DM or the characters you play, you get to explore a little bit of yourself by through that freedom. And if I can just create the guidelines for that freedom so that people can, you know, start learning and growing as and making and I feel like making your lives better just feels weird to say, but like, you know, TTRPGs help me so much with managing my mental health better. Things like that, where if I can just provide the tools so that people can have that environment through which they can explore and learn about themselves and become more comfortable with who they are, like that's amazing. And I always find that's a little bit more. I find it a little bit more easy to do that with like setting and subclasses, but I I love I love all parts of D&D design, man. It's just great. It's just so much fun.
You mentioned Sina Una.
Yes.
For those that don't know, tell me about that.
Okay, so the Islands of Sina Una is an upcoming 5E supplement that is based entirely around pre colonial Filipino culture and mythology. So we are going to have a setting and subclasses and an adventure. There's going to be 7 different islands, as well as 12 different subclasses, so one for each of the base classes, as well as two entirely new classes. And it's all, and of course, monsters, magic items, spells, and adventure, all of the whole works. It's going to be in there, and it's all based around exploring pre-colonial Filipino mythology and culture. And at least for me personally, as lead writer for it, I've loved getting to look at these stories essentially because we get so used to seeing like, oh, this is what a dragon looks like. It's big, it's scaly, it has wings, it looks like a lizard. And then learning in like pre-colonial Filipino mythology, like we had the equivalent of dragons, but for us, dragons took a different form because dragons are meant to be what is the most terrifying thing. And so for us, they're like giant raptor birds that come down from the mountains and swoop up monkeys and children. And like looking at like the monsters, like you see like the myths of like the world serpent of Jormungandr, and learning that like in pre-colonial Filipino mythology, we had something similar. We had Bakunawa, one of the celestial eaters who went and swallowed the moons. And learning and seeing those patterns repeated and yet also so different in these really interesting ways, and really diving into how my ancestors essentially looked at the natural world around them and created these stories to rationalize it. And that's super cool to me. And it's been just so much fun taking those stories and putting them into mechanics and being like, you get to play with it now. Look at it. Look at it. You get to play with it. Go. Have fun. It's so cool. And I can't wait for people to like actually get to play with it because I've been sitting on like the sub and some of the subclasses and I'm like, I want to play with them. I want to play with them now. Let me play. Let me in. I wrote this, but let me in.
Sorry.
It's just I just like I love the subclasses we've built. They're so cool and I just want to play them. Even if I
Jormungandr,
did
you're right. Jormungandr is an interesting thing because it exists
yeah,
in almost every
the Ouroboros.
the Ouroboros
Yeah.
exists in every culture. It's the one thing that exists in every single, and of course everyone's gonna think to make a snake eat its own tail, but
Yeah.
still,
I
I
mean,
find
I don't know if like I don't know how I mean I have to do research, and part of writing for Sina Una is just doing constant research and constantly learning, and that isn't a bad thing. But I think it's I don't know if Bakunawa has ever been represented by the Ouroboros, but it's that same idea of like, oh, there is a serpent and it's big and it's going to eat the world.
right.
Oh goodness. And that just everywhere. We just
Yeah.
giant serpents exist in all mythology. But it's so cool to see how different cultures rationalize like that same imagery. Some people might think like if you look at I think it's Chinese mythology, but I'm not sure, so please don't quote me on that. But like dragons are those serpentine dragons are meant to bring rain and good luck. But if you look at like Egyptian mythology with Apep or Apophis, it's like, that's the chaos serpent who's gonna eat the sun. And then you have Jormungandr, and then you have Bakunawa, and they're all like big giant serpents, but how they're used to rationalize the natural world is it's so different and it's so fascinating. And golly, there's a lot of big snacks in mythology, and I want the D&D, all of them. All of them.
Okay, very personal question. What's your favorite subclass and class? This is a question coming from the Neo Morose. I'm saying that wrong, I'm sure. No, we lost Mac. She coming back? Mac's back. Okay.
I just got the alert, internet connection is unstable. Shut up, Zoom. Let me live.
I should say just yeah. Don't you tell me soon.
Don't you tell me my connection is unstable.
What
Oh
we had
god,
a
yeah.
question from chat. What is your favorite
Yes.
subclass in class?
Oh god. Okay. So my favorite class is Warlock,
Well done.
Um,
Well done. I am proud.
like I said, you got to talk with Scraticus, okay? I've already made a contract with them. So like, if you want to like have joint custody of my soul, you're gonna have to talk it over with them, okay? Look, I don't. Look, you offered me too late, okay? You offered me a pack too late. I can't do it, but
I'll just scratch. I'll just Thanos Scrackus. That's fine.
no, not my brother. I've always liked Warlock because I think personally I like Warlock because it doesn't because I'm a dirty multiclasser and Warlock spell slots don't follow normal rules. So I can have all the spell slots and all the cantrips and it's great. And I mean I think I've always liked Warlock because I love playing with that idea
Hmm.
of and I just love the dynamic and sort of playing around with like what what path did this character go down in order to end up in a place where they made a deal with an entity or was it a choice that they made, was it an unconscious choice, did they accidentally sort of trip and stumble their way into a warlock pact and they're like well we're here now, did they and I love getting to explore that. I think so. That's one of my favorite classes to play. Subclasses though, they're so
It does force you instantly like story. That's what I
yeah,
like about Warlock. Warlock is
yeah.
pure story from the get.
Warlock and cleric are always so much fun because it's like you have a tie to something else.
Yeah.
I also love playing rogues.
Yeah.
Rogues are very fun. I want more castery rogues, but like rogues are great. Um, I think yeah, the most I've played are rogues and warlocks because I think at this point it's like I know them so well. I get scared of trying anything else. I want to play more clerics though because it's that same idea of story and
Hmm.
having a story built in and getting to explore that because that's the thing I love is I love getting making characters that can tell stories about how they ended up where they are and where they're going. Um,
Yeah, my current obsession is philosophy clerics. I'm like, how is that a philosophy? Like trickery, I've got good well, I
yeah,
literally play a character who is that. But
yeah,
like how can you make the Tempest a philosophy? Like someone who just
yeah,
believes in storms so much.
yeah. Ah,
That
God.
fascinates me almost.
Yeah, my favorite thing is playing clerics who don't want to be clerics but are clerics, and it's just like, the gods above have chosen you to go forth into the world, and then my cleric's like, but what if I didn't? What if no? And that's my favorite thing to play, where it's like a cleric who's like, I don't really like want to. It's like, yeah, I guess my god's okay. I guess cool, and then the god's like, no, you are holy. Do the thing I have sent you for. And the cleric's like, fine. I just don't want to get smote.
Is there for people at home who want to become a designer like yourself, what are some of the key things that you've learned in the last 2 years that you think would be
Oh
really helpful
God.
for people to know? Like, because this is all very intimidating. Like
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, this
writing
is
on that for a
terrifying.
subclass, not liking your own work. Probably that's just how I am. I hate everything I do.
Oh,
This is my default.
hey Todd. I'll let you in a secret. I also hate everything I do.
I thought you were gonna say I also hate everything you do.
No,
I was like,
never.
thanks.
No, my
No,
gosh, no.
no, I'm kidding.
No, I struggle with that a lot, and I think the thing that I wish I'd learned sooner was that part of being no one tells you this, but part of being creative is being brave and getting over that fear. I remember when I started out, I was like, I'm not gonna tell anyone what I'm working on because what if I let people down, or what if they don't like it, and or what if I don't finish it, and then I let people down, or I finish it and then they don't like it and they hate it. Well, I'm just gonna keep it to myself until it's ready to show to the world, and even then maybe, and then I can also like if I don't tell anyone, if I hate it, then I can retract it, and then no one will know. But you got to get over that fear and show your work to others. It may be just a small step of just, you know, hi, you're a friend of mine. Would you have time to like look this over and see how it is? And just get over those little hurdles. Start with people you trust. I've always found it helpful for me to put my projects on Twitter to hold myself accountable for finishing things because that's something I struggled a lot with when I was starting out was that I'd have an idea, I'd get started, I'd hate it, and then I'd quit. And the cycle would continue. And I'd never finish anything because I just get so caught up in my own self-loathing. And I just needed to hold myself accountable. And for some people, it's putting it on Twitter and saying, I am going to write this gosh darn subclass. If it's the last thing I do, and I'm putting it on Twitter so people can yell at me when I don't do it. For some people, it's just like getting a writing group. And that's not as, ostentatious. Um, that was the big thing for me, getting over that fear. I still get that fear when like I sit down to write like Encounter. I will sit and go, "Oh god, people are gonna read this." And then I get the writer equivalent of stage fright where I just sort of freeze up and I stare at a blank Google Doc with the little cursor blinking and I'm just like, oh, this is terrifying." But I think it's important to realize that fear is never going to go away. You're never going to be happy with you're going to have to learn how to be happy with your work because it's so easy for you to go, I hate this. I did this wrong. I did this wrong. I did this wrong. Yada 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 yada. And you're going to have to learn to see the things you're good at. And it's going to
Hmm.
take time. And it's why like at the end of the speech I was like if you're not ready to see that if you don't see that you're important yet, that's fine. You don't have to like that's a journey in and of itself. Learning to like the things you create and learning to stand by it. That takes time and it takes a lot of effort and you have to work at it. There isn't going to be one day when you publish something and then magically something switches in your brain and you're suddenly like, I'm a great creator. It doesn't happen like that. It's something you're going to struggle with forever, but just give it a go because if you shout into the void, you'll be so surprised at how many people actually want to listen. That's something I found and I think it's pretty universal.
I have to admit, I still have that paralysis. But it's almost
Uh,
like depression in that sense of like
It
you,
never goes away. You just learn how to manage it.
yeah, and uh, you feel guilty for even having the feeling of being depressed. So like
Oh,
feel
goodness.
guilty for even writing something. Like it's
Oh
almost like a
god,
strange
yes.
relationship.
Yep. Like like when oh my god, I had it so when we were writing the encounters of the week for Wildmount, I remember when I sat down to write the first one and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be so cool." Oh god, why me? No, no, why did they choose me? What if I let them down? Ah, what if I can't write anything? What if it's bad? But then it's like, oh, but if I don't write something, then it's well, then I'm taking an opportunity away from someone else who could write something, so I have to write it. But what if it sucks? I don't know. And then you just spend like 2 hours just having a crisis in front of your Google Doc, like, but I have a deadline.
I know this mood.
With the project that we can't talk about because NDA. Yeah, no,
NDA, NDA,
yeah, no,
NDA.
I had that feeling too. I just want you to
Oh, you
know
don't
that.
even know. Like I shoved something your way, and I'm just like, this is probably hot garbage. Here you go, fix. I am a terrible human.
It wasn't hot garbage. It was good for a very first attempt at hashing out a subclass, and
Oh
that's
my
all I
god.
can say without breaking the
And that's
NDA.
all we got. I'm glad that we got to share that moment.
Oh, when it finally gets out into the world, we're gonna be like, look at the behind the scenes. Look at how many times we were like, here's some garbo, make it pretty, thank you.
Yes, I think that's gonna be a theme of much of my career. Is always here's
Look
some
at this
garbage. Please make this
garbage,
better. Thank you much.
make it shiny, thank you. That's also why you hire editors. It's like, make this garbo shiny, thank you.
Yeah, and people who have computer science backgrounds as well, um, who understand logic.
Never look at my code ever, please. Don't do it. It's bad.
What's been the best thing since D&D for you?
Oh God. Oh, it's got to be my found family, man. I have like I mean, like I know some people say like you shouldn't throw the word love around because, it's too weighty, but I think something I've learned through playing D&D is like how much I have that capacity to just love and love fiercely. And I found so many wonderful people who have changed my life. And I wouldn't, I want them in my life and I want to keep, and I love them so much. And I don't know if part of it is because I met them through playing games, and so we've played with these with characters together, and these characters have gone through harrowing experiences, and so through corollary, I've gone through experiences with these people, like through my character and the adventure and their character. But then that translates to outside the table, and we just bond and we go through real life adventures and real life harrowing experiences just together. And genuinely have brothers and sisters now. I like with Scrat, I'm like, yeah, my British older brother. Like with Paladin, I'm like, yeah, my brother who was it was my egg brother because I terrify him with egg. And like Alice is my sister, and I have so many people that I'm like, this is my family now. I can't imagine not having them, and that's been the thing for me. As much as I love playing D&D and I love designing and I love the fact that like this is a career for me. I have a career outside of college that is something I enjoy, and that is great. But the thing that makes it mean so much to me is the fact that I get to share it with so many people I love. And if I didn't have the people I love, this wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah, it's again always shocking, um, the people that we've met through this hobby
Yep.
and was not prepared at any point.
Oh God, no, I wasn't. God, no. If you told Mac 2 years, like speaking of talking to Mac 2 years ago, if you were like, hey, by the way, like in 2 years, you're gonna like accidentally start picking up British slang and have a slight British accent because you spend so much time with someone you consider brothers and sisters. To your Mac from 2 years ago would be like, what? Huh? Okay.
Mm.
Sure, and just not believe you. But, it's I wouldn't have met so many of these people without this game, and I'm so grateful for it because God, they've made my life so much brighter.
What do you wanna work on coming up that you can talk about?
Yeah, that's a caveat, ain't it? It's like, sweet,
Welcome to the
sweet
life of NDAs.
NDAs. I would love to. I think something I really want to do, and I mentioned it when I was like talking about my thesis. I have this setting. I would really love the chance to get to DM on stream more,
Yeah.
in my own settings, and just because I love DMing. I'm honestly as much as I love playing, I feel a little bit more comfortable in a DM seat for a variety of reasons. Part of it is I have trouble reading facial expressions, so it's a lot easier for me to like play when I'm the DM and I can switch between characters and just also just straight up ask my players, "Is there anything else you'd like to do?" That makes it super easy for me. But I want to DM more, and I would love to later in the year start DMing more and be a new DM face in the D&D community. It's been brought up a couple of times that a lot of the most prominent DMs are white, cis, male, usually, sometimes white, cis, female, but um I want to I want to show like a different perspective, and I know my style of DMing isn't quite like Matt Mercer's or Perkins's or yours or anyone else's. It's just kind of an amalgamation of things that I find work for me. And I want to be able to show that and show people that that you can DM because I was terrified to DM at first because I was like, I don't know how to DM like Matt Mercer or like any of my friends who DM. I don't know how they do it. And I want to just be able to show people like so they have another person to look at and go, "Oh, if she can do it, so can I." I remember before pandemic happened, I was supposed to go to my little sister's school for career day, and I remember thinking about it and wondering why did I really want to do this? And I remember it's because my sister has a D&D club at her school and she didn't want to join at first because she was like, None of my friends are in it and I don't know if I'd fit in and I'm not gonna." And I want her to be able to look at the things I'm doing and go, "Oh, well she's doing it and she's like me, so maybe I can do it too." And I want to be that person not just for my little sister but for as many people as I can be. And then create a space where I can make room for other people to become that person for someone else because I'm not going to be like the end all be all, obviously. But if I can, from my position, create more openings for people to
Mhm.
take up that seat and take up a mantle and lead the way for this new wave of TTRPGs, I will have done my job, and that's the crux of it, I think.
because it's very hard when you don't see yourself represented
Mhm.
to think that you can do something, and it's not even
Yep.
a matter of like it just doesn't occur.
Yep. It doesn't occur. And I mean, one of the things like you said it, I just started playing D&D. I'm so new to it in comparison to a lot of other people. And so I remember going into it thinking, "Oh, I can't DM. I don't have enough experience yet. I haven't played it long enough. I don't know the PHB. I don't have the all I've been really using is the basic rules because I haven't been able to buy the DMG yet because, I'm in college and I need to buy actual textbooks." Um
Ugh.
And so it was like one of the things where it's like, I don't have enough experience. I don't have that history that a lot of other DMs have where they were like, I started out in third edition, then went to fourth edition, then went to fifth edition. I just started out in fifth edition like a year ago. And I I want to show people it's like, no, you don't have to have that storied tradition or anything. You can just pick it up and go and have fun, make up your own stuff. Sometimes not coming in without those preconceptions is great.
Yeah. And I have a rat's nest of additions in my brain that constantly conflict with each other, and it took me even teaching my wife D&D to realize like spell slots. Wow, this is pure madness. Explaining this is just really rough.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're used to playing. If you play D&D for multiple generations, iterations, you're
yeah,
just like, oh, this is just normal, this is fine. And then you explain it to someone new and you're like, this is bonkers. Like you have this
yeah,
many third level spells, you have
yeah.
two level 3 spell slots, but if you
Yep.
carry the
Uh,
5, the
yep, and then you
1.
have to design for spellcasters
Yeah.
and keep spell slots in mind.
Yeah.
Oh god!
uh what This is a less stressful question, I promise. What's your favorite warlock patron?
Oh goodness, well, okay, look, I'm contractually obligated to say Scraticus.
Wow.
I'm
And I
kidding.
brought you on this show and everything.
Like I said, you gotta talk with it. You gotta talk with them,
Pull
all
the plug.
right? You have that conversation. But seriously speaking, I've always liked the Celestial, and I wish there were more like the Celestial um, Warlock patron. Just because I think when you look at a lot of like the Warlock and a lot of the base Warlock, it's all very doom and gloom and like, you made a pact with a dark and mysterious power. Your soul is doomed. Um,
That's
and
how we say
I
it.
yeah, that's how it goes. And I love the idea. I love the Celestial because it plays around with that idea, and I'm always one who I love smashing tropes. Um, I
Yeah.
love the idea of like we have the archetypal look for each of these classes, but I love things that twist it around or make it different. So I love the Celestial. I wish there was more support for the Celestial in like the Warlock spell list, or there were other classes like the Celestial. Like the Archfey is sort of close in that it isn't like a doom and gloom patron, but it's still
Mhm.
not like quite there. And I would love to see that. I'd love to see more patrons that play around with that idea of like what entities can you make a deal with, because it sometimes deals aren't bad. Like
Yeah.
I jokingly refer to myself as like a warlock for Scrat because Scrat helped me in the very beginning, and like I very very early on I was like I didn't make a pact necessarily, but I Scrat helped me realize like I could be a better person, and I essentially made a pact with them to like keep going and keep trying even when I was at my lowest. And sometimes that's what a pact is. It's making that deal with someone and promising I will you see something good in me, and I promise I will work until I can reach that potential you see in me, because I don't see it yet, but I promise I will work until I do. And that's like something I would love to see.
I I've been very tempted by that celestial warlock because I've always played it that I stole the magic that my warlock uses. But the idea of like the two big ideas I've always said are I work for a unicorn that needs some people dead. And so I like the idea of like a John Wick warlock that's like
Ooh.
killing for the sake of good, but also like a horribly bad person that has to make a pact with a celestial, a good creature, is
Mhm.
interesting too. Where you're trying to be a
Yep.
bad person, but this is where you got your magic from.
or it's like like an angel or a celestial being saw potential in you, was like, you are a terrible
Exactly.
person, but I think you can be better, and I'm going to help you be better. And I think that would just be so interesting to play. It would also hit very close to home, but it would be so interesting to play, to like have a character who is like, I'm not a good person, I don't deserve this magic, and slowly learning like, no, you've got some good in you. You can do some good things.
Do you understand why you are the valedictorian now, though?
I I understand I am one of the youngest people in the industry right now, and I was what I think the only one in the industry who like did actually graduate this year. So that helps. But I think like I said, I shouldn't be the only valedictorian
No, of
necessarily.
course not. There are a lot of
And I think
classes.
there are so many people, and I want to work and do my hardest to like make space for them. Um I know a lot of people look up to me as essentially a benchmark for where the industry is going to go. It's not something I intended to have or something I intended to be when I started out working in D&D, but I know it's a responsibility I carry, and I know I'm not going to carry it perfectly, and I know I'm going to mess up so much. But I hope that I can do the people who look at me like that proud, and, you know, not be worthy of it, but help lead so that when the next valedictorian does come around, it's leading into a better and brighter future, I think.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. I am, in a very non-condescending way, very proud of you, and I
Thank you.
have. It's been a delight getting to know you this year. You are an amazing human being, and I'm glad that you could have a graduation in front of 1,500 people. I hope
Mm.
that helps a
Hey,
little
you
bit.
know what? You know what? It's better than what the original plan was sitting which was sitting in a black robe on a field in Southern California heat for an hour and a half. So,
Yeah.
I will take this. This is
Okay.
pretty good.
I'll make sure you get a scroll once all of this is over.
I will disinfect my D&D Beyond diploma.
Not good, but it probably won't have. It won't be a diploma. It'll probably be a spell. So
No, it's actually a warlock pact. Dang it.
that's how
That's
they
how
get you
that's how they
every
get you.
time. Wait till you start getting those letters from your former patron about
Oh
would you
god.
like to donate money?
Would you like to donate some of your hit dice to a warlock in need?
We know you've already given us thousands
And
upon
thousands of
thousands of
years of
dollars,
your
but would you
life.
like to give us more thousands of thousands of dollars?
Ow, ow, it's getting too real.
I
End,
know.
end the interview, it's getting too real.
Sorry. It's too much. It's too much. I think we just realized that the Warlock patron is actually college.
Coming
So
soon to Drive Through RPG.
yeah, university. Warlock,
Ow,
Warlock U.
ow.
Yeah, it hurts too deep. Thank you so much, Mac, for being on the show
Thank you
and for
for
being such a
thank you for
positive
inviting
influence on
me.
everyone. Do you have anything that you'd like to end on?
Oh, I just thanks. Just I mean, thanks you for naming me D&D valedictorian, and I guess thanks to so many people. Just I literally wouldn't be here without the people I've met in the community, and I'm so grateful for them. And like I said, I know I'm not going to be perfect, but I hope at the very least I can make all of you proud.
Your imperfection is enough. That's perfect. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank
Thank you to
you.
Mackenzie. Have a great day.